there's this letdown of I almost made it. And so a lot of those players suffer from a little depression afterwards because all their lives they were pointed towards this one goal and they missed it. But what people don't realize is the people on the winning team also suffer that same depression because all their lives they've been working towards this one goal and they get it. And then a lot of them don't have the what's next.
Welcome, entrepreneurs, to Pay or Quit,
where we reveal the gritty truth behind business success.
People see the glory, but not the struggle it takes to get there.
We're here to share the real stories of entrepreneurs navigating the tough intersection of business and relationships. I'm Tony Cline.
And I'm Shawn Johnson. And together we'll guide you through the real challenges faced as serial entrepreneurs.
Join us for the untold stories behind the scenes.
Buckle in. It might get messy. Well, season 1 has been absolutely fun. We are going to cap season 1 with this episode today. Super excited to share what we have in store, big things in store for season number 2. We have 2 big topics today. So success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure. And number 2, if you're spinning your wheels and feel like you never get anything done, we've got some quick hit solutions to that problem. So Tony, why don't you kick us off with complacency?
Well, before we get started, I want to just say it's interesting that you said season 1 has been absolutely fun, but didn't mention how good it was or the quality. So, we're having a good time, and hopefully everyone else is too. So so let's kind of jump in. And let's talk a little bit about success and how success breeds complacency. You know, you and I wound up, we've gone in previous episodes where we talked about how we met and some of the things that we did before we decided to come together. But you and I both were in a point in our lives and our careers where things were running pretty well. And that success allowed us to look for other shiny objects, I would say. And we both started looking at how could we do this merger? How could we try to do something bigger and better? And as we dive into that, I think as entrepreneurs, we have to be really careful of what gets our attention. And success in and of itself takes incredible focus. And I know you're going to be shocked, but I'm going to bring up a running reference. And right? But, you know, last year I was super focused on running the Triple Crown and trying to get those 3 200-mile races done, 654 miles over 3 races spaced out over a span of about 2.5 months from the start of the first to the finish of the third race. And when I was super focused on that, I was doing everything right. I was doing all my training, I was doing all my stretching, I was watching the diet, and not necessarily the diet, but the nutrition part of it. And then you achieve some level of success. I finished in the top 10 for the combined times for all 3 races for the Triple Crown. And it's really easy to now this year keep looking back at the success that I had and just kind of relive the glory days, relive the good old days, and not continue to build on that success. And I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we get caught up in that where we have a really good month, a really good year, we put out some good product, some good service, and we don't continue to build on that. And rather than building on it and inking out those little incremental progress steps, we look for something new and shiny that will capture our attention. And, I won't speak for you, but when we did our merger, that was part of what was exciting for me, which was it was something new. It was getting out of the mundane day-to-day, the everyday training that you need to do, the boring stuff. So I'll let you give your feedback on that, but and talk about your story a little bit. But that's kind of where I wound up.
Yeah, I think mine's similar. I think when I look back, it felt more like boredom that had morphed into complacency because it was comfortable. And I know you got the ability, you sprinkled in running already, so let me sprinkle in aviation. Complacency in aviation kills people. And in business, it can kill a business, right? So I'll give an example in aviation. Complacency would be something like not following a checklist and you miss a major thing, like you hot start the engine, or you don't put the throttle in the detent, which would allow for you to roll off easy and accidentally kill the engine. So those types of things are, in a checklist, and they're in a checklist to keep us non-complacent, to keep us focused on the task at hand. For me, when we decided to merge Home Vault, yeah, certainly life was kind of in the easy train, and the business was running really well, and I had a fantastic operations manager that was just taking it really easy. And yeah, I look back and I think to myself, well, what could I have done differently, or should I have been? And I have no regrets with it. But it was definitely a different path to take than to just build the individual or dive deeper into the business, if you will, that we already had at hand. Like it would have been probably the wiser decision to just hop in, dig deeper into the current business that was in front of me instead of trying to do something bigger and better. But at the same time, I think it's, as driven individuals, we want to take things to the next level. What else can we do? What else are we capable of as human beings? And test the waters, right? I think I would have regretted not trying it more than I ever would have of trying and failing. And I don't think failure is not the opposite to success, right? Failure is really just a stepping stone to success. So that's kind of my take on it. I have enjoyed the journey. And what is the I think it's Keith Cunningham, he calls it a stupid tax, right? Right. Sometimes when you make decisions, and especially like complacency comes in here, and you make a decision or a no decision, if you will, and it costs you money, well, that's just a stupid tax, right? And sometimes we have to pay those taxes to learn.
Yeah. And to go back to a point you made earlier, I think, I like to say that failure is the foundation of success. Like nobody just starts something, or very few people anyway, start something and immediately have that high level of success. They start, they try, they fail, they learn a little something, they do it a little better the next time. So yeah, I think that's, if you look at the equation for success, and when you talk to successful people, and not to drop a little teaser, well, I guess I will. We'll be talking to some successful people here in some future episodes, and we'll dig into not just their successes, but also the things that got them there and some of the struggles that they went through. So anyway, if this is too much of a tease, we'll cut it out.
No, that's awesome. I would just say that, just to kind of ground this topic is, hopefully as a listener out there, people can relate, we have two opposites of the spectrum. We're talking about complacency because things have gotten easy, but then we're about to say, or talk about, if you're spinning your wheels and you can't get anything done, well, that's the opposite, right? You're so buried into the business that you're not really feel like you're getting anything done or accomplished through the business. So hopefully someone can relate. Like if you're in the business realm and things have gotten super easy, I would just encourage you to look up and look at the big picture and focus on the task at hand. Maybe the thing to do is to do something like a national merger, but maybe the thing to do is just to vertically integrate or double down on your investment in your own business now and make that better, right? Or do nothing. I mean, if you're content, I have to ask myself frequently, when is enough enough? My mom is great at asking me that. Like she sees our wealth and she sees our success and is like, when is enough enough? And to me, I always answer that question to my mom and say, look, it's not actually about money. It's not actually about chasing money. It's about actually pursuing something that I'm passionate about and that I feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose with. That's what is far more important than money. You know, all of us start a business probably to gain money, right? You have to make money at this, or why would you even want to do it? It's far too stressful and far too risky if you're not making money at it. But that only takes you so far. If you're chasing money, it only takes you so far. It has to be deeper. It has to be, what am I actually doing? What is my stamp on this world that I want to leave behind, right? So anyhow, this is a little bit of a rant, but hopefully it helps somebody relate a little deeper.
Well, I think there's two things. The first one is people who have achieved some level of success. I like to call it the Super Bowl syndrome, and I don't know if there's actually an official term for it or not, but people that work really hard, successful people that work really, really hard to get really good at something and kind of reach the top of the game. If you look at the studies of people that make it to the Super Bowl, you've got two teams that work to be the very best, and one of those two teams is going to come out on top. One of them is going to have, since they were kids, work as hard as they can and dedicate time and effort and be singularly focused to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And the odds of a team getting back to the Super Bowl are not great. So you figure you get there, you got your one shot. You're either going to win the game or you're going to lose the game. And if you lose the game, there's this letdown of I almost made it. And so a lot of those players suffer from a little depression afterwards because all their lives they were pointed towards this one goal and they missed it. But what people don't realize is the people on the winning team also suffer that same depression because all their lives they've been working towards this one goal and they get it. And then a lot of them don't have the what's next. And so, yeah, for the ones that win, the goal is to repeat and win the Super Bowl. But, there's not a lot of teams that continue to repeat, and especially not of the same players, even if it's the same team. And so what I've found is that it's not just looking at what's next for me that keeps me motivated. It's looking for what's next after the next thing. And so I've always got this stair step of business goals. And I think if we can stay focused on having our business goals out in front of us, then when we do hit that milestone, we do hit that major accomplishment, there's not that letdown of I've made it and I don't know what to do. And I'm just going to rest on the success of the past, and they're going to go out and achieve more and drive more towards the next thing. Having your business goals will also keep you focused on not chasing those shiny objects, those opportunities that come along. That one of the things I was talking about in one of my coaching sessions this week was that, and I can't remember, I'm going to butcher it, but there's a quote by Steve Jobs, and he says something like, he's more proud of the times he said no and the things he said no to than the times that he said yes, because the things that he had the discipline to say no to allowed him to stay focused and work on the things that were able to drive him to his massive success.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just put on my Twitter feed, I think it was yesterday, I said, if you're not rooted in who you are, then you are at the mercy of being distracted by every shiny thing. And I think that was one thing that Steve Jobs is known for. Like, he really had some self-awareness at a different level. And he knew when to say yes to something, but he knew when to say no to a lot of things. And that's super cool. I'm not there yet. I'm certainly trying to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good segue to our next topic here. So if you're spinning your wheels and feel like you're never getting anything done, try this. All right, so here's some things that have worked for me. Time blocking, one. We've all heard it, right? Time block. But time block your rocks. What are the actual goals that you want to achieve? So set aside time to actually work on those goals and do nothing else but work on those. Maybe it's only 30 minutes or an hour, but at least you are working towards your goal. because you've time blocked and set aside specific time for that. Number 2 here is focus time. I know you've probably heard 50 gurus, if if you will, have said to use focus time. I actually use the focus time app, and I will, especially if I have a big agenda for the day, and I will set that thing next to my computer, and it's just a clock ticking down from 25 minutes. And I know that those 25 minutes that I'm doing nothing but the task at hand. And it helps, I don't know why, but it helps my brain turn off the distractions. Like that's all I'm doing is those things. Then, like it, when my phone is put in focus time, it actually puts my phone into do not disturb, and I'm not getting the text messages or the Facebook Messenger messages and all the junk that's, trying to get our attention. So that's super helpful. And I would say, like, if you have a focus time and it doesn't go as planned, don't be too hard on yourself, but don't also let it just derail you, right? Let it happen. It's like when people talk about meditation and you have a thought come into your head and you're supposed to be focusing your time on breathing, and you have a thought, just take the thought and cast it aside. And you get another thought, just take the thought and cast it. Same thing, right? Don't let the distraction derail your objective here or your progress. But focus time has been a huge help for me. I recommend 25-minute doses. I think there's science to that. That's what they say. I don't know. I like 25 minutes. And Kristen my wife never takes breaks. Like she just works all day long, and I can't do that. So I like 25 minutes. It then reframes to, break time. So I get 5 minutes. I go get a drink, use the restroom, whatever. And then I'm back at it for another 25. And that's super helpful for me. And then the do not disturb function, like if you have an office, let other people know, hey, I'm going to have some deep work here or some focus time, and work towards those goals. I think it is so common to get caught in the weeds in business, and that's all you do is spend your time in the weeds. And a week goes by, a month goes by, a quarter goes by, and then a year goes by, and you think, well, crap, I didn't meet any of my objectives, or I didn't meet any of my goals. And that's just crazy, right? So those are my recommendations, Tony. I'm sure you're a way better goal setter than I am. I mean, you like to run for miles on end. So here we go.
Well, I would say we're both pretty good at setting goals, and we just have different categories that we focus on. But yeah, I think one of the things that you touched on about time blocking your rocks and time blocking your tasks, it's funny because I'll hear somebody brag about being really good at multitasking, and the science has proven that there's no such thing. There's task switching, but not multitasking. And the more you switch back and forth from different types of tasks, the longer it takes you to get back into flow. And so if you were to take 2 tasks, think about you're the salesperson for your company, but you're also evaluating and doing your financials, and your heads down into planning and budgeting, and then you get a call and you've got to immediately switch from being head focused into the financial details into being more outgoing and listening to, and having that mindset shift of I've got to now focus on identifying somebody's problems and seeing if we have a solution. And so going into sales mode, if you're constantly switching back and forth between those two, those are completely different ways of thinking and thought process. And so, really trying to get clear on, this is my do not disturb time. Like you said, I'm time blocking. And then the other time is now I'm focused on sales or marketing or whatever else you have, building out your processes or whatever it is. It's just different mindsets. So 100% agree with you about trying to time block those rocks. And then as far as the breaks, you had mentioned making sure you put your breaks in. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we think about the fact that we have so much to get done. We have way more to get done in a day than we actually have day to get it done in. And at some point, we just have to stop and leave something to do for the following day. And a lot of times for us, that's hard because we have so much that we need to get done, and we know the consequences of either doing it or not doing it. But what I've found is that most of my best ideas and a lot of my best productivity actually comes either during a break or immediately after. And there's some science around bookending. They talk about bookending things. So when you first start a task, you remember what you do at the very beginning of that, and then you remember at the end. So if you are going through a list of people and you meet 5 people, you're going to have a better chance of remembering the name of the first person you met and the last person you met. And the people in between kind of get lost out. And there's this science about bookending. And so when you take a break, you're constantly putting those markers on your brain about what you were working on. And then when you step away, you use a different part of your brain when you're on a break, which allows you to still be processing some of those thoughts, but you're doing it almost subconsciously. And so a lot of times those thoughts come back to you when you do come back from a break. You have a whole new outlook on how to accomplish the thing that you were struggling with so hard before you took the break.
Oh, I love that. I haven't really thought of it that way. I've always looked at the breaks as the refuels. So if I'm driving across the country and it's 3,000 miles, I have to stop and get gas, and I have to stop and get food, and I have to stop and use the restroom, right? And that to me like gets me further. I could only get 500 miles if I never took a break, but I could get 3,000 miles if I stop and take a break and just let my mind settle for a minute and then get back at the deep work. And I feel like it seems like when I do this, it seems like the second or third session of 25 minutes is actually deeper than the first. So my brain, after a break or two, and my brain starts to really get into flow, if you will. The other thing is like you're inevitably going to have a thought come up while you're in this session, if you will, this 25-minute deep dive. And it's not going to be related to the topic that you're working on. So how I've found to not sidetrack what I'm working on is to keep a notebook right next to me. And when that thought comes up, I just jot down the thought and then I move on from it. That way I know that it's still going to get accomplished because I did think of it, but then I gotta stay on my task here. So that was my final 2 cents.
All right. So before we move on from this topic, I want to close out this topic with something that has been, I'm not a big tattoo guy, but if I was, this might be something that I would get tattooed because it's become so important to me lately. And it's the phrase, I should only do the things that only I can do. So if we're talking about spinning our wheels and feeling like we're not getting a lot accomplished, let's look at what we're actually doing. And when you're a solo entrepreneur, you're the only one that works for a company, but you're not the only one that can get things done for your company. There are other people who specialize in things, and sometimes when we have to look at budgets and things like that, it can create this mindset that we have to do everything because we just can't afford to spend the money, or I'm the only one that can do it as good as I can do it. And so there's this, I think, sometimes this mindset of, I'm the only guy, I got to do it myself. And then even when we bring on a few team members, we wind up doing things that we know we should offload. And just an example of that, I spent 5 hours yesterday working on a process and documenting something that hopefully when I roll this out in training later today, that'll be the last 5 hours that I spend on this for the entire remainder of my business journey, because I've taken that time to take that off my plate. So I was able to invest the time. I'm the only one that could outline what I wanted in this process and the results. But now that I've done that, somebody else can actually execute on it. So I'll say it again, and hopefully our listeners or viewers really feel as moved by it as I do. But I should only do the things that only I can do. And if I'm doing something else than that, then that means I'm taking away opportunity for my team to learn and to grow and to execute and to deliver results and to be a part of the culture. But the other thing is, if I'm doing something else that somebody else can do, then that means that I'm not focusing on doing the things that only I can do, which means nobody is doing those things. And so it'd be like if we're all on a ship out at sea and I'm the only one that can steer the ship, but yet I decide to go and arrange the deck chairs. Like, that's a really poor captain at that point. And so it's just one of those things that if you continue to say that, and now your team knows, now my team knows, when I'm starting to get into the weeds, they're like, you shouldn't be doing that. And it helps remind me, step out of those weeds. And so I think it's not just about getting things done, it's about getting the right things done.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Tony. Okay, so should we talk about season 2? Here we go.
We are then.
Well, let's
talk about season 2.
All right, season 1 was super fun for me. Like, dude, I love it. Super cool. We are going to, I don't know what you put a bow on it. It's in the can, I think you say, for season 1. Super excited about season 2. We have some I'm talking about high caliber guests that we have recorded with and that we have scheduled with already. And I am super stoked about that. We are going to be focusing on the hard stuff of business, the truth of business, the truth of being an entrepreneur, that it's not all roses and butterflies. As a matter of fact, what happens in our business often floods over to our personal lives and vice versa. And it's hard to separate the two. And maybe you don't want to, right? I don't know about you, but I love this journey with my wife, and we make good business partners, and we sit right next to each other. And a lot of people couldn't do that, but it comes with its challenges, right? So we're going to dive deep into the trenches of being in business further than we ever have. Hopefully Tony and I will set aside and talk about the dark, deep parts of our own entrepreneurial journeys that we've had in the future as well. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents about it. Tony, what do you got?
Well, let's share a little bit about why we decided to do the 2 seasons and what we plan to bring to the listeners, why we're sort of doing that pivot or adjustment to the show. Well,
I don't know what you want me to say. You just kind of caught me off guard there.
This is going to be my new favorite segment.
You go for it.
Catching Shawn off guard. All right, so we'll cut that out.
Or not.
Okay, so we decided to do 2 seasons. We decided to shift into a new season. We talked a lot about our own journeys in the property management space, in the real estate space, and we are shifting a little bit more into general business. There is a lot of experience that we have in property management, but that was really business experience overall that we had. And we're going to be shifting into talking with people who are performing at a very high level in all areas of business. And there are lessons in business that you can apply across the board. And so we've decided to shift away. It's not that we're going to totally get away from talking about property management, because after 20 years, 25 years, it's just in our blood. But we're going to be focusing a little bit more on sharing the successes and the failures and the struggles of all entrepreneurs across the board. And we believe, especially from some of the recordings that we've already done, that there is a lot of value that we have coming up in season 2.
Amen. It's in the can.
It's in the can.
No, this has been fun. Season 1, it's in the can. Super, super excited about season 2 and our upcoming guests. I am ready to personally level up. I already have from interviewing these folks. It is super cool. So we hope that our audience enjoys it as much as we do, because it's going to be high level.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise of what it really takes to be a successful entrepreneur.
If today's episode hit home, share it with a friend. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one.